The Subaru Express service process is designed to deliver the ultimate in convenience, consistency, and quality to our valued Subaru customers. A dedicated express service team with a well-choreographed service process is the key to meeting customer expectations for service in 30 minutes or less. This video is an overview of that efficient Subaru Express service process, from the time the customer pulls into the retail service department until the vehicle is redelivered and they drive off the lot. The team includes 3 main members that are skilled at providing a great customer experience: the Express Service Representative, also known as an ESR, and 2 Express Service Technicians, the Wet Technician and the Dry Technician, who move the vehicle through the 30-minute service window. The ESR greets the customer as she enters the service lane, and if possible, before she exits the vehicle. The ESR should make a great first impression, approaching the vehicle with enthusiasm and a smile.
Hi, what brings you in today?
I'd like an oil change.
Okay. Well, welcome to Subaru Express Service. My name is Justin. You mind if I get some information from your vehicle?
Sure, go ahead.
This is Justin's opportunity to learn about the customer's service needs and to introduce the multi-point inspection form for the first time. He invites the customer to accompany him on a quick walk-around of the vehicle while noting any damage onto the inspection form and assuring the customer that the vehicle will be returned in the same condition as when it was received. He lets the customer know that he is only doing a preliminary check and that the Express technicians will perform a more thorough multi-point inspection. At this time, he asks the customer about any other vehicle concerns and requests a signature to authorize the multi-point inspection and service. A tire rotation is recommended if the customer does not request one, and that time should be included in a promised servicing completion time. And the ESR should ask if the customer wishes to have the vehicle washed and notes the additional time required for the wash. If the customer has concerns outside of the Subaru Express service process, the ESR refers them to the main service department for a more in-depth service diagnosis. The ESR communicates a promised vehicle completion time, adds the protective seat covers and floor mats, and directs the customer to the lounge. At the same time, the vehicle is moved to the Express service bay or to a dedicated staging area if necessary. The ESR uses a quick write-up sheet to gather the necessary information for the repair order, and the MPI form stays in the vehicle. The team is now engaged in an efficient, choreographed process. While approaching the bay, the Dry Tech checks wiper and washer operation, notes any wiper concerns, and checks the windshield for cracks and chips that may not be readily visible. He then turns off the radio, rolls down the windows, and drives the vehicle onto the lift, guided by the Wet Tech. The Wet Tech calls for the horn operation and the lights to be turned on. He then checks the front of the vehicle for any obvious damage and jounces the front of the car to check for suspension issues. The Dry Tech marks the MPI form as the Wet Tech calls out the conditions. Working counterclockwise around the vehicle, the Wet Tech inspects the driver's side wiper blade and windshield condition and looks for any noticeable tire wear as he continues toward the rear of the vehicle. Then the Wet Tech calls out the condition of the rear lights as the Dry Tech activates each light, including the brakes and reverse function, making sure the parking brake is set prior to putting the vehicle in reverse. The Wet Tech then observes and calls out the operation of the license plate lamp and checks the rear suspension by jouncing the vehicle. He continues around the passenger side from back to front, again checking for damage and noticeable tire wear. As he reaches the passenger side windshield, he checks the wiper blade and windshield for condition and calls out the conditions to the Dry Tech. Finally, the Wet Tech sets the vehicle lift on the passenger side. Prior to leaving the vehicle, the Dry Tech resets the maintenance light, if applicable, deactivates the parking brake to allow tire inspection, and releases the hood latch. He should also have already checked the interior condition, including interior lights. As the Dry Tech exits the vehicle, he notes on the MPI the tire pressure settings found on the driver's side door jamb. And then sets the driver's side vehicle lift. After clear calls, the vehicle is lifted until all tires are a few inches from the floor, and the Wet Tech jounces the vehicle to check for stability. The wet tech opens the hood and removes the oil cap, placing the cap on the hood latch to help prevent the possibility of the vehicle leaving without replacing the cap. The dry tech removes any battery covers and visually inspects both battery terminals for corrosion and then attaches the battery tester to perform a battery test. As the results of the battery test print, the dry tech removes and inspects the cabin air filter. The condition of the filter is noted on the MPI and then set aside so that the ESR can show it to the customer. At the same time, the wet tech checks the oil level, leaves the dipstick dangling to indicate that fresh oil has not been added to the engine yet, and the dry tech records the existing oil level on the MPI form. The wet tech checks the engine air filter for condition, notes it on the MPI, and places it on the workbench so it too may be shown to the customer by the ESR. The wet tech tops off front and rear fluid if necessary and checks the level and condition of the brake fluid, noting any discrepancies on the form. He also checks the level and condition of the power steering fluid and visually inspects the belts and hoses. The brake fluid is not topped off, but if the power steering fluid is low, he should be sure to check for under-vehicle leaks. While he works, he continues to call out inspection results so that the dry tech can record them on the MPI form. With the underhood inspection complete, it is now time to lift the vehicle for further work. If tire rotation is included in the Subaru Express service or has been pre-sold by the ESR, the wet tech removes and stages the tires for rotation, starting with the driver's side and then moving to the passenger side. The dry tech follows the wet tech to measure brake pads and check rotor condition. Once complete, the wet tech replaces the wheels. Following an additional vehicle lift, the dry tech works counterclockwise again, slowly spinning each tire to check for nails or other embedded objects, as well as tire wear patterns. Tread depth is measured at 3 distinct locations: outer, middle, and inner areas, and the lowest tread depth is noted on the MPI. Tire pressures are checked and adjusted as well. The wet tech begins the under-vehicle inspection, moving from the rear to the front. If the spare tire is located under the vehicle, the condition and air pressure is also noted and adjusted. The wet tech inspects and calls out conditions: CV boots front and rear, shocks, struts, and suspension, universal joints, mufflers and exhaust, and looks for and notes any fluid leaks. After reviewing results together, the dry tech delivers the completed MPI along with the existing and new cabin air filters and engine air filters to the ESR. The wet tech removes the oil drain plug and removes the filter if located under the vehicle. After the oil has sufficiently drained, the wet tech replaces the drain plug and replaces the oil filter if it's located under the vehicle. While the wet tech continues with servicing, the ESR shares the results of the MPI with the customer, as well as a new cabin air filter and engine air filter alongside the vehicle's existing cabin and engine air filters for comparison. The ESR communicates any immediate needs or recommended services and asks for the customer's approval for these additional services. Based on the additional services, the promised servicing time may need to be revised. After the ESR communicates the revised promise time, the ESR updates the RO, takes payment or directs the customer to the cashier, and returns the filters to the technicians. At this point, the vehicle is ready to be lowered to the floor. Both technicians call and answer, "Clear to lower," and the process continues. The dry tech removes the driver's side vehicle lifts, uses a torque wrench to tighten the lug nuts on all wheels working counterclockwise, and then removes the passenger side vehicle lifts. He then enters the vehicle to replace the cabin air filter or install a new one, followed by applying a new maintenance label. At the same time, the wet tech works under the hood to replace the engine oil and the oil filter if located in the engine compartment, and the oil cap. He pushes in the dipstick and then replaces the engine air filter or installs a new one. If wiper blade or bulb replacement were requested, this service would be done at this time. When finished, he signals the dry tech that the engine is clear to start.
Clear to start.
The dry tech starts the vehicle, waits until the oil pressure light goes out, and then shuts off the engine. After the engine is off, the wet tech pulls the dipstick, wipes it clean, and then reinserts it to verify that the oil level is satisfactory. He shows the dipstick to the dry tech to confirm compliance. After replacing the dipstick, he checks to ensure that all caps and covers are in place, wipes up any fluid or oil spills, and firmly shuts the hood. The dry tech asks if the vehicle is clear to leave, and the wet tech responds accordingly. The dry tech drives the vehicle to the car wash or delivery area and notifies the ESR that vehicle service is complete. Meanwhile, the wet tech cleans and preps the express bay for the next vehicle. In the delivery area, the ESR takes the keys and escorts the customer to their vehicle, thanking them for bringing the vehicle in for service. Upon arrival at the vehicle, the ESR checks to make sure all interior protective materials have been removed, along with any service hang tags. This Subaru Express service process is fast and efficient and meets customers' expectations for convenience and quality. It is choreographed and consistently executed by a 3-member team skilled at providing a great customer experience.